Hello, and welcome to Recapping with Delora
and Ashley.
Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Recapping Podcast.
Also, rate, review, and subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast platform. We're on all the things.
We want to hear your thoughts on the movies and shows we review.
Leave us a comment on Apple Podcasts or our YouTube channel, and we will read them during the show.
Or reach out to us on social media. We love talking all things entertainment and pop culture with you.
Thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you. Hello, Ashley.
Hey, what's up?
I don't think I've been this excited in like a long time. And that's a lie because we talked about Wicked earlier.
Right. I was about to say, we just came off of recapping our favorite film of 2024. What are you saying?
Well, Ashley, let me tell you, this particular project here, I don't know. I just feel lucky to have like back-to-back A+ projects because we are recapping the new Apple TV Plus documentary. It's called Number One on the Call Sheet. It is in two parts. They are both an hour and 37 for the first one and an hour 32 for the second. Rated MATV, as I mentioned, documentary released March 28th, 2025. Here is the summary. Some of Hollywood's biggest stars reveal their journeys to game-changing leading roles. In candid interviews, they shine a light on the highs and lows of their craft, breakthrough moments, blueprints for success, and the next generation's huge potential. Because this is a documentary, we have all the celebrities. I don't know if I'm going to list everyone, but we have Jamie Foxx, Kevin Hart, Halle Berry, the Angela Bassett, who did the thing, Denzel Washington, Viola Davis, Whoopi Goldberg, Morgan Freeman, Idris Elba, Cynthia Erivo. This is just to name a few, okay? For producers, we have Reginald Hudlin, Brian Smiley, Halle Berry, Viola Davis, Whoopi Goldberg, Angela Bassett, Jamie Foxx, Dan Cogan, Daytria Turner, and Kevin Hart. Rotten Tomatoes, critics gave this project 100%. Have we done a 100% project?
Yes. I can't remember what it's been, but yes, there has been. Okay.
So this is probably our second. That doesn't happen. There isn't any audience score or Google user percentage, but it is brand spanking new. So Ashley, what's your grade for Number One on the Call Sheet?
I said it last week. This 2-episode documentary had me in a chokehold. It was so good. I loved hearing from the actors and directors and folks in entertainment, hearing stories I've never heard from stars that I've idolized and grown up with, and some of the stars that are in my generation and in the next. I loved it. I loved that it was broken up and the men had their chance to really talk about their experiences and the women really had their chance to talk about their experiences. And, you know, there is a list that I have of folks that I made that I was like, where were these people for like the interview section?
Yeah.
But everybody was still incorporated, even visually or reference that I'm going to name anyway.
Yes.
So it's
because
still
no denying them.
Yes, it still fed me and gave me everything that I needed. They didn't shy away from big questions like, you know, why a Black woman since Halle Berry hasn't won an Oscar and prior. And, you know, great stories from Eddie Murphy that I just was not ready for. And looking back on the careers of people, again, who we've grown up with, who we just don't necessarily know all of the tales. I I was sucked in. And it was so well done and crafted. So it is an A for me. Thank you for suggesting this as a recap, Delora, because it was a great one.
Yay! I realized I forgot to mention the directors. Reginald Hudlin for the men portion and Shola Lynch for the women part. So for me, it's an A plus 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 plus. Ashley, I was geeked when I first heard about it, and I thought it was going to be available earlier in the month because I was like, oh, I want to do it. It worked out. That's okay. When it became available and I started watching it, I I was blown away. It is so well done. And you and I love a good behind the scene moment. We are
Yes.
talking about upper echelon actors. How often do you see Denzel Washington talking about his career?
Yeah.
Like ever?
Like not just
Like
upper echelon, the stars.
I know. Will
The
Smith. I mean,
stars.
yes, recently he's had a book and everything like that, but the fact that he was so inspired by Eddie Murphy that he wanted to be Eddie Murphy in Star Wars, I was like, I wouldn't have put those two together. Like, those and it's so good. And then with the women's side, just understanding the stories of like people were discouraging them, but they decided to move forward anyway. And they took chances on young directors and ended up getting these, iconic roles is just so well done. And I'm excited to talk about it. So I don't know if it's spoiler alert, but we just gonna go ahead and get into this recap. Ashley, I didn't know what to really expect. I just saw the preview where you literally have the actors sitting down talking about their experience being number one on the call sheet. This is so significant for African Americans in particular because we're in America. Hollywood is in America. And there's this constant conversation when it comes to available roles for Black actors and Oscar so white and the end of DEI. We just talked about recently Disney Plus canceling the Princess Tiana series that was supposed to happen.
Yep.
Again, get these actors to sit down and tell their stories. And to your point, I was so happy that they decided to make the men's side and the women's side and be able to shape the documentary on those two fronts because there's so much nuance to it. And I'm going to go ahead and jump in on the women's side because the men's side is a lot of fun because it's a lot of huge stars with huge success with a number of projects underneath their belts. But it's so different on the women's side. And they start off telling you less than 4% of today's top grossing films star a Black actress. What I thought was beautiful is the women, unfortunately, could not speak to box office global impact, big numbers, but they talked about the plight, how there aren't many interesting roles for women to begin with. And then you're fighting against the beauty standard. Ashley, what's your take when it comes to the women's documentary?
Oh, that's a big question.
Well, on that front, of me talking about how they don't necessarily have the same Will Smith,
Yes.
global impact, Kevin Hart, global impact.
Yes.
That conversation is so much different on the women's side.
I mean, it was a stark difference and it was felt and noted. To your point, there was a lot of levity. There was a lot of, oh, Eddie Murphy was here, so I wanted to emulate Eddie. Oh, Will Smith was here, so I wanted to imitate Will. And
Yes.
on and on. Those type of variations, they had those folks. And yes, the women have people who preceded them, but to a point, they're talking about them too, as far as not getting acknowledgement, not getting recognition, not being able to help
Yes.
push forward in the industry the way they would have wanted. Halle Berry winning an Oscar and still no other Black woman getting it since. It's Halle Berry said it. She said, Black people are at the bottom of the totem pole and Black women are at the bottom of the totem pole, right? And that's felt, that's understood. You had one of the folks, even on, I think on the men's side of the documentary, who said, while we may have a bigger piece of the pie in terms of maybe being number one on the call sheet and all that, who ultimately makes decisions about what gets greenlit and all of that, that has not really changed and progressed.
Yes.
So, we're still fighting in general, but Black women are at the front lines of having to still fight to try to find the level of success and equality in the industry that even the Black men counterparts in the documentary have been able to experience. They hold no less reverence in our hearts, though. I can say
That
that.
part,
In the
period.
culture, I
In the
can say
culture,
that.
that's so true.
Maybe controversial some. One of my biggest grievances with The Rock is that he doesn't platform Black women in the ways that I feel like he should. If you're a part of
Ooh,
this documentary and you're speaking to your Blackness in this way, why don't you platform Black women in your projects? I feel like The Rock has the power and
ever,
influence.
never, ever.
Never,
Maybe,
ever. I feel like
yeah,
he has the
and
power and influence to be doing that.
he could, yeah. Maybe he feels like he's doing something with his partnership with Kevin Hart. And I appreciated that portion where they said there's no ego when they work together, but you're shaking your head no.
No, no, no. I mean, I love their relationship. I love their friendship. Don't get me wrong. It's brought me many a laugh on Instagram and in Jumanji and in projects they have together. I love their dynamic and their friendship, but that does not negate at all for me what I'm saying. Like when The Rock said the comment about like, what do you do when you reach the top of the mountain? I want to bring people up and build more mountain. Who are you bringing up? Who is that?
I'm not gonna lie, I have always been a fan of The Rock. I've kind of lightened up in recent years, but I didn't think I still identified as a black
I
actor.
don't think he does either. I think he, even in the documentary, called himself a man of color. And again, I love The Rock too. I've been a fan of The Rock since the days of wrestling. I made
Same.
a
I
Rock
smell
poster.
what he's cooking.
I made a poster
Absolutely.
for that man, even when he didn't
Same.
show up to the event. But
Correct.
I'm a grown
Same.
woman and I'm going to call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
And that is one of my prolonged grievances with him now that he's reached this level of success.
So let's start from the beginning. Were you familiar with the term number one on the call sheet? What did that mean to you? And who gave the best representation from the documentary on what that actually means?
Well, I think it means, in my mind, has always meant that that is the star of whatever production there is, right? Like they are. I actually think that what's her name? Who was in Dear White People and all of that? I'm blanking on the actress's
Tessa.
name. I feel like Tessa gave the best definition where she said it is the person who drives the narrative, right? Who is centered, and that
Mm.
that is what the number one on the call sheet really seems like it is. But again, to me, it's the star. It's the person who may be behind the scenes influencing the project as well, but they're definitely the biggest influence. It's the Issa Rae's from Insecure. She's number one on the call sheet. She's the star of the show. It's Martin from Martin. He's the star of the show.
Kerry
He's number one
Washington
on the call sheet.
scandal.
Yes, like
Yes.
we know who number one on the call sheet is when you watch the thing. You know.
Yes.
Again, I think that's one of that was one of our grievances with Black Cake was that the daughter
Yes.
acted like she was number one on the call sheet, but she
You're
was
like,
not.
sis, you were number five.
Yeah,
Sit down.
exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
Oh my
But
gosh.
I also was recently thinking about Sterling and how for Paradise,
Yes.
he said
Yes.
that he had kind of a not wanting to be superstition against being number one on the call sheet because he felt like it would jinx the project. And so now Paradise is the first project where he was number one on the call sheet. And him and James Marsden were talking about it. James was like, oh, so now you decide to take a chance with the jinx? So that was a cute little fun snippet with them. But, Sterling was absolutely the star of that series. So, yes, that man was number
Which
one on the
we
call sheet.
love and celebrate.
Yes, y'all listen to that recap. Love that show. They are
Love
already
it.
filming season 2, by the way.
And
So,
they're making it available for everybody,
yo,
having it show on ABC. So that's
yep.
going to broaden the audience, which I love.
And yay to broadcast. Yay.
Yay!
Yay.
Yay! My favorite definition of number one on the call sheet was Lawrence Fishburne and his experience in Apocalypse Now. He said that he was a young actor required to talk about something he know nothing about, had so
Yes.
many takes, and he was feeling down and dejected. And the Martin Sheen said, "Did anyone tell you you were a good actor?" He's like, no. He's like, you're a really good actor. Girl, I was bawling.
Oh,
I was like, that is so beautiful. Like, this is why I love this documentary so much. I found myself in tears, laughing out loud, angry and happy. Like, I felt the range of emotions because I just thought it was just done so well.
first of all, I
Um,
don't know where I've been, but I didn't know Lawrence Fishburne was a child star. Second of all, me and Martin Sheen are from the
listen,
same hometown. That's that Midwest in them, baby. Yes.
but see, that's the type of leadership that I appreciate and I like to emulate. Like I get that often at work. They're like, you always make sure everyone is has a say or collaborating because I see people, you know what I mean? And to know that you're the lead, but you being the lead means nothing if the least of these aren't, the weakest link isn't strong, to me shows tremendous leadership. And I thought that was such a beautiful, beautiful take. Has there ever been anything like this before? I think that's why I was also excited about this project. I cannot remember seeing so many of our faves in one project like this.
I don't feel like I can remember one, you guys can correct us, for actors and actresses, definitely for musicians. I feel like we get a lot more musical documentaries that have big stars in them than we have from acting. Correct us if we're wrong, though, but that's my two
Yeah.
cents.
I think one of the things that I thought was really fascinating was the different pathways to success. And I say this to say we have Denzel Washington, who recently said in the CBS Morning interview, I'm an actor that so happened to do movies, but I'm a stage actor. That is the actor's medium, the theater. And he's like, all I wanted to do was be like James Earl Jones. That was the goal. But then you have Eddie Murphy, who just wanted to be famous and it was a comedian. And then you have Will Smith, who was a musician that was inspired by Eddie Murphy, as we mentioned previously. What was your take on the different pathways to fame?
I mean, Eddie Murphy had a little moment, didn't he, where he said, I may be the only actor who can say this. I've only had one audition ever. And it was for
Period.
Saturday Night Live. And I was
Whew.
19, 20 years old. Okay. That was a flex, Eddie.
It really was.
He said, they
And
ain't never seen nothing like me before. They couldn't nobody give me advice.
that was, I was floored. Okay, Ashley. And he was like, the advice I was given was so bad. Like, no one can help me.
Go
And I
bury your
didn't,
money out on your land. But they can take my land, but they won't know where you buried that money, though.
Ashley, though, real talk. I didn't realize how young he was when
Me
all of that
either.
hit.
Me either. He turned
With
21 on the set of like 48 hours, I think it
yes,
was. I, again, because these are people that preceded us who are legends for us. So,
yes.
no, I had no idea he was that young. It makes more sense why he's so calm and like laid
Now,
back and like, I'm gonna be
yeah,
in the house
yes.
because he lived. But
He's like, let me go ahead and do these animation movies and be
but
at home.
one thing I also love about the crop of people that were talking in this is they didn't shy away from the fact that they all had to live disciplined in order to reach the level of
Yes.
success that they got to.
Yes, Will Smith was like, I am not only the most disciplined person, but the people around me had to be disciplined. He's like, I will be an international global star.
And I was like, this is why Jada revolted, baby. This is why, like, that was the first thought on my mind was like, this is why Jada had to go.
It's so funny that you say that because, again, everybody likes to talk about Jada, Jada, Jada. We don't know what Will was like going from Fresh Prince to Independence Day to, box office darling. You know what I mean? But I appreciate his drive because the one thing about Will Smith that we know is he's incredibly intelligent. And I just was really impressed with the clarity of vision that he had and Kevin Hart.
Can I say one
Because
more thing about Will Smith real quick?
of course we
He
can talk about Will
looked
Smith all the
he
time.
looked good in this documentary. That beard,
Period.
I said,
When
Will,
I say we can always talk about Will Smith, we'll come back.
you were
Um,
rested and hydrated. You looked amazing.
oh my gosh.
You were about to start with Kevin Hart.
Well, I was just alluding to both he and Kevin Hart seem to have a level of clarity in their vision, whereas you have like Jamie Foxx, who was like, I didn't know I was going to be an actor. You know what I mean?
He wanted to be a musician.
He wanted to be a musician. Exactly. And then The Rock, I had $7 in my pocket. I'm just trying to figure
A
out.
kid from the islands in Hawaii. Okay.
Did anything surprise you in the way that the actors or actresses describe their journey?
I don't think anything necessarily just surprised me, but it was all just great stories and things to hear about. You know what I mean? Even from the directors like Reginald Hudlin and him talking about Boomerang and the experience of, House Party and just, all these experiences that everybody got to have felt very new, felt very fresh, even if I've heard bits and pieces of it before. The fact that Denzel Washington said he's not a movie buff, I'm like, that's crazy. Like, that
It
just
is crazy
sounds
to me.
crazy.
Yeah, I agree. What's also crazy is, we talk about this when we talk about politics, the plight of Black people. There hasn't been a lot of time, right? The Civil Rights Act's barely 60 years old, right? Like, how free have we truly been outside of Jim Crow? And the same can be said when it comes to the medium of movies. And I say that because it really put a lot of perspective in the timeline. Like, in some ways, I feel like we're living in the golden age of having someone like a Denzel to have a freaking 30-year run, right?
Yes.
Um, to having Viola Davis and Angela Bassett. Angela Bassett has been putting in work,
Mhm.
okay? And Afri Witter. Were you surprised when they put time next to like their projects and where you are and how you've been able to consume it? Because you know a lot of time today people like to put down Boys in the Hood, and I think the reason why a lot of actors do that is because after that unexpected hit, they're like, y'all just want to see us in the hood shooting each other. But that was such a significant movie, and I hate that we disparage it at the same time.
Hmm. I mean, I don't disparage it.
But
And
you know what I mean. There's
yeah,
always this
because
conversation of like, I
yes,
want to do more.
yes, I think I was just going to speak to my perspective about it, but to your point about it, I think it's still a struggle for Black folks to have representation and to be seen as multifaceted. So when we do have the opportunity for representation, we always want to be put forth in the best light. And so, that comes down to music with rap music, that comes down to these types of films. I totally get it. But this does speak to some people's experiences. I mean, you know, yes, John Singleton was new on the scene and he was speaking to the experiences he had growing up. Nia Long said, I could have walked home from the
Right.
set. Like, that's how close it was to where I lived. So it may not be your experience. You may not like that this blew up into some big thing because it's playing into some stereotypes that society may have of Black people, but it is someone's story. I mean, it's the same thing why I never, as much as I criticize Tyler Perry in terms of not enjoying his projects because I just don't think they're very good, some of them,
Mm-hmm.
I've
Mm-hmm.
never criticized him for his representation because he has said Medea is a version of his mother and women in his life. He also has affluent Black people in roles in his projects as well. So
Right.
I don't,
Right.
maybe too, because you and I consume a lot as far as media in
Mm-hmm.
film and TV, we get to see a broader landscape. But I just think that everything like a Boys in the Hood has its place, right? And it was essential for Boys in the Hood to come out to be able to continue to push forward with other projects at that time, like Juice, like even a Poetic
Right.
Justice,
Right.
and giving opportunity for Black filmmakers to have more cachet so that they can create more diversity in projects that they want to do.
Absolutely. And that kind of goes into the available roles. And I think that was truly highlighted on the women's side, where, that same conversation of beauty standards, but when it comes to Black women, there's the archetype, right? You're somebody's mammy, somebody's harlot, or someone's BFF.
Gabrielle Union, I love how real she is about the
So
early
real.
roles that she played because I
Yes.
always still think of her from that era of 10 Things I Hate About You and she's all that. And it's such a stark difference to the woman it seems like she is now. But I've never heard her
Yes.
speak about her feelings about those early roles.
Oh, I have her first memoir is one of my favorite memoirs ever.
Mm.
Like we're gonna need more drinks than this or
Oh,
something along
yeah.
those
I
lines.
remember that title.
Yes, she talks about that was the first time she was very free to your point. And I think it's interesting because it's one thing to do it in a book, but it's another thing to do it like
On camera.
on camera. I thought they did a really great job talking about Hattie McDaniel and the women of her time, where all she wanted to do was act, but because they had such a limited ideas of Black women, she just took that role and it translated into Whoopi talking about her journey and how essentially the reason why she got the movies she got was because bigger, wider stars turned down those roles and she had to convince producers to put her in.
You asked me earlier what was surprising. That was surprising when she talked about the role she got because of who was not wanting to take that on. That did surprise me. Now that you
And
mention
of
it,
course, Bette Midler turned down Sister Act, and now it is canon. Okay.
iconic. It made it on the list. Kev on stage and Tony did and Tony was against it, which I'm not. Sister Act 2 is a black classic.
It is absolutely a Black classic. I
But what I have
agree.
against them is they did not name any black love films, and I take issue with that.
Well, they're men,
So
but listen, so we're going to go down that road in one moment to speak to surprises for me. And it was also equal parts inspiring. Morgan Freeman's story.
yeah, I didn't know. He was
You mean to
50?
tell me this man he didn't hit until he was 50?
I had no idea.
Now, for y'all, we love y'all. For Ashley and I, Morgan Freeman has always been old. Okay. Our entire life. But I had no idea this man was in his 50s
No,
when he got his big break doing a Clint Eastwood movie. What?
had
This is
no
driving Miss
idea.
Daisy. This is Shawshank Redemption.
This is Lean on
Okay.
Me.
I'm the head in charge. Okay.
I will never forget, and I still to this day always say, but he said, what did he say? I don't have to do nothing but be black and die. Something like that. Let me find the
Shawshank?
line. No, he said this in Lean on Me.
Oh,
No, The Shawshank is your movie.
oh, girl. Have you seen it?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't
I
like movies about prison.
it's the only exception. Like you are the only exception. That's how I feel about Shawshank Redemption because I was so floored by the story and how well it was done.
He said, I don't have to do nothing but stay black and die. So,
Oh,
very
so
close.
sad.
Yep.
But yeah, his story was so inspirational. Again, talking about everyone having a different journey. Didn't know that Lawrence Fishburne was essentially a child actor being 16 years old in freaking Francis Coppola films,
No
right?
idea.
But what I love about his story is like there is no such thing as a small role because he was like, I was absolutely cowboy Larry. Pee Wee Herman.
Shout out to Paul Rubens for having a diverse
Yes.
set.
Yes. I'm like, I know that man had his troubles, but when I tell you I was impressed,
I
Cowboy
will
Curtis.
I will say this again. That man was not troubled. He was a grown adult. And he
True.
did things that grown adults do. And just because he was a child entertainer, y'all villainized him.
Yeah, that's probably what, yeah. Society is weird like that. But they couldn't lock up that white lady who kept getting pregnant by that student. But okay.
Mary Kay Letourneau? Is that what you said? Didn't she end up serving a little time or she
She
did?
did. She did. But
Okay. Yeah, I'm like, I could have sworn because she had the baby while she was in prison, right?
she did. She did.
Check out May to December. We talked a little bit about it on that
we did.
recap.
We sure did. So let's talk about romance, Ashley. Again, Boomerang and Love Jones being essentially some of the first Black romances. What? Like, I feel like I took them for granted, and they were made oh, in my lifetime.
These are two of my favorite my favorites.
Yes,
Boomerang flat out. Number one in my heart, even though Marcus ain't ish. I love
trash.
that movie so much. We've recapped it. We've recapped Love Jones as well,
We
guys.
did. We did.
And I love hearing Nia Long talk about Love Jones. I love looking back and thinking about how iconic Boomerang was for having a fully Black cast. Black
Yes,
people were running the office, okay? We were
absolutely.
living our best Black lives. These are things I now talk to my mom about. I said, living in a Black household, I took for granted how Black my world was because
Yeah,
it was so normal for me.
same. Same. Everything was Black.
Yes,
My school, my church, my neighborhood.
everything.
Yeah, that's all I knew.
Going back to my mom's house now, I'll look at stuff and be like, I forgot how much even like Black art we have. My mom has the painting from the Cosby Show that hung on their wall, that hangs on her wall.
I love
Jesus
that.
is Black in my mama's house. Okay.
Wait,
Mom, not to tell all your business, but you know
she
what I'm
doesn't have
saying.
JFK and Obama on the wall, does she, with Martin
No,
Luther King? Okay,
no.
so
But
that's
she
a,
does have Obama calendars every year.
I love that so much. I love
You
that.
know what I mean? But it's like those are the things that, you kind of not take for granted, but it's iconic to think about how, amazing and how this pushed us forward and we were just kids. Even when I think about living single, I was just talking to my brother. I didn't really think about the fact that Khadijah owned
Right.
this business, you know?
But if you think about it, that is the plight of Black America, where you have to own it for it to actually go somewhere if you want it done a particular way. I feel like we saw a lot of that on the men's side of the documentary of like, this is my production company. I mean, we know this was produced by Foxhole and Heartbeat, there was a lot of talk of having to do it yourself, especially with Eddie Murphy as well. So it's like I was gonna be like, well, you can't be too successful, then they'll want to see what you're doing and try to tear it down. Because that has been the cycle of this country, unfortunately. Shout out to Black Wall Street. So Hollywood often leans on box office success to justify representation. Do you think the industry is still reluctant to invest in Black projects unless
Yeah.
they think it's a sure thing?
Yeah. I mean, we've seen a resurgence of, you know, not investing in us, Black shows getting canceled. We've talked about it on the
Yep.
podcast, Black projects not getting greenlit, all that sort of stuff. So, we had been in a very nice little golden era where we had a lot of Black things going on in Hollywood and beyond the Black producers and folks who seem like they're pushing projects forward, the Isas, which I was surprised Issa was not in this documentary, maybe just because she doesn't have the box office appeal of some of these other folks, but she is, in my opinion, on this list at this point. I don't, I mean, to speak to the larger culture with DEI and all this stuff becoming a bad word and people trying to roll everything back. And it seems like what happened in 2020 now being a novelty that people will just talk about and not something that actually changed culture or perception or reality for us. I don't know what's going to happen.
Do you feel like this documentary will open any doors?
No, I wish that wasn't the case, but I don't think anyone in Hollywood is going to see this and be like, "Damn, Halle Berry and them had a point." Let me Let me change my vote at next year's Academy Awards.
Right, right.
Whoopi Goldberg says she's had those conversations.
It's so funny because I sometimes wonder if it's a delicate balance for the winners to talk about the plight of the Academy, especially when talking about the Best Actress category. Because Halle Berry's point, the 2021 Oscars, you had two Black women up for it. I really thought it was going to Andra Day. I
Yes.
think we even talked about it and like the best odds ever. And it was like, nope. And don't get me wrong, I feel like the worst nope in recent history is definitely Demi Moore this year. Okay. The way Academy did her was dirty.
I have not seen the substance. I cannot speak to the substance. But Cynthia Erivo was damn sure robbed. Because I
Absolutely.
have
I
seen
agree.
Wicked and I have seen Honora.
Yeah. I'm with Hallie though. She's recently mentioned, not necessarily in this documentary, but she's like, this is an Academy question. Stop asking me why there aren't any more people than me. And I was like, word, preach. It kind of reminds me of Van Lathan's shirt that says, stop asking Black people about slavery. That's white history. That's
Yep.
European history. And I'm like, I know that's right.
Yeah, Hallie was shedding a couple tears still in the interview talking about it. And I mean, they gave it to her and Denzel same night.
With Sidney Poitier
Sydney got the additional. I'm just like, so they just said y'all got one night. This is
for the
it.
next 20
Don't
plus
ask me for
years,
nothing else.
pretty much. She was even questioning, was it even worth it? And I was like, yo, or did it mean anything? She
Did
was
it mean
questioning,
anything?
did it mean anything?
Did it mean anything? Yeah. And a lot of people did not like what she had to do to win it. Same with Denzel.
Girl, I felt agreed. And I think we've had these conversations because I'm like, so Denzel had to be a villain and Hallie had to get butt ass naked for a white man. Okay.
Add on to the fact, I don't know if y'all remember, Diddy was her husband in Monsters
Diddy
Ball.
was her husband. And that movie wasn't even the best movie. It was
No,
not great.
no.
It was like a Precious 2.0 with the suffrage. You know what I mean? The Black mom dealing with her son, her husband being in jail. Like, no, thank you. But again, we still love Hallie and we were rooting for her because, period, right?
Absolutely.
Take the
Iconic
Denzel.
Oscars look along with it. I mean,
Yes, yes. But speaking of Precious, I'm glad that Gabby Sidibe had time to talk about her experience because I forgot she was nominated for Best Actress. She's an Academy nominee. I don't
yep.
know why I forgot that. But she took me out talking about she was a sex phone operator. And nobody wanted to call the Black girl line, but she had to pretend to be what, a Megan, a Morgan or something.
Yeah, she said all pretty much all the girls were black that
Yes.
were on that phone line, but they ain't want to call the black phone line. They just didn't know. That was like the one movie, Sorry to Bother You or whatever it was with Lakeith.
Yep.
I can almost
Yep.
always take it back to a movie.
That's why we have this podcast.
I know. Like that's where my mind goes every time.
Who was missing from this documentary, Ashley?
Ooh, man. Okay. From the guy's side, I kind of left it be because I do feel like they had the heavyweights and they did what they needed to do. Samuel L. Jackson's the biggest glaring gap for me.
Girl, that was number one for me.
Yeah.
Sam L, like how Black people call it. We don't even take the time to say Samuel L. Sam L. Jackson. Okay, where was he?
Yeah.
Probably in a Marvel
He
on
was
a
doing
Marvel
something.
set.
He said, I'm always working because I'm an actor. I work.
But you know, when it comes to Sam, he's always been vocal on, I don't care about the Oscars. That's a popularity contest. You know, let me do my box office. Let me keep doing what I love and call it a day.
Yep.
And I thought he was old when he popped, but Morgan got him beat, by the way. But see, that shows, you know, persistence. And I appreciate that about their story.
Anybody
Who
else for you
else?
on the men's side before we go to the women's side?
I have Forrest Whitaker. just because he's another Oscar winner,
True.
Best Actor. But I was pleased to see Idris Elba. I also thought it was interesting, friend. They didn't do the American versus British thing.
Yeah, they could have, but we
They could
kept it.
have.
We kept
Cute.
it collective Black power.
And I say that because with Idris Elba's conversation, he said that it wasn't until he got to America that somebody was like, "Oh, you chocolate. Oh, you handsome."
Sexy.
And I was like, "Yo," and then he was like, "Well, then this is my thing now." That was very interesting.
Yep.
Who do you have for the ladies?
Okay, the ladies, I have a list. Okay. And again, a lot of these folks were referenced or seen. Queen Latifah.
Girl, number one, because she's out here. Queen has led so many movies.
I mean, I just don't know how you don't have Queen Latifah.
Bringing down the house? Like what?
Chicago. I mean, she is her range. Her
Yes.
range. Set it off. Her
Yes.
range.
Yes.
Needed
From
to be spoken
comedies to
to.
musical to
Yeah.
dramas.
And you talk about somebody who's
Absolutely.
multi-talented. Queen Latifah.
Yep.
Again, to me, Issa Rae should have been in this project. You talk about the generation of now. Yes, she may not yet be as poppin' in film as she is with TV, but she just had one of them days, number one at the box office.
Yeah.
She's a
I think it's
multi-hyphenate.
interesting for the women's side. I felt like they were light on the next generation.
Agree, because where was Zendaya?
Zendaya was on my list as well.
I was like, I see y'all show her, but Zendaya just broke history as the highest earning Black woman on television. Again, I know this is more about film,
Yes.
with getting paid $1 million an episode for Euphoria. She is a
But
box office star.
she is technically, but I don't think she's been number one on the call sheet until the movie that just dropped last year, Challengers.
So
This is number one on the call sheet, Ashley. That's what I'm
she's
saying.
made it. So
But
she's
no,
made
we don't know
it.
when this was made. It's not like
They
that
should have got
just
on
happened.
the phone. Kevin Hart should have got on the phone. Jamie Foxx should have got on the phone and said, "Yo, I'm gonna need to talk to Zendaya for this
But
documentary."
she's obviously the next generation of movie star for sure.
But
for
if we're gonna
sure.
have Michael B. Jordan on the guy side, we needed
Yeah.
a Zendaya on the
Yeah.
lady side.
And Michael B was in it for a hot minute, though. It wasn't even, I expected to see a little bit more from him, but no, it wasn't.
I think Jada should have been in this. I think Jada
Yes.
deserved a spot in this.
Yes, I agree. Jada was hot in the 90s for sure.
She is a part of the Halle Berry, Vivica Fox
Yes.
generation of, I
Leading
mean,
ladies. Absolutely.
come on. Jada should have
Yeah.
been in this. If we're talking about female directors, where was Ava? Where was Gina?
Correct.
Like, you could have
Correct.
had a one or two Black female
Where's
filmmakers.
Sanaa?
Where's Sanaa?
She could have been there too.
Where's Sanaa? Where's
For
Kerry
me-
Washington?
So, how many movies has Carrie? Carrie has done a lot of films, but she didn't pop until Scandal, like megastar.
But Carrie, again, is somebody, again, we had such, not just star power on the guy side, but on the guy side, we have people who we see with production companies and leading,
Yes.
truly leading the forefront of pushing projects. That is Kerry
True.
Washington.
That is true. That is true.
Like,
You know who I have? Janet Jackson.
I thought about Janet Jackson, especially with the reference of like the 90s and Poetic Justice and all these things. I just don't know if Janet would give you what these other actresses are giving you.
And she's not, because she's fucking Janet Jackson.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
she was like, let me go ahead and go to this Velvet Road tour and then I'll hop back in. And yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that reminded me of, again, Reeve Witter talking about her family discouraging her from pursuing acting. Same with Angela Bassett. They're like, why are you wasting your time with acting? Because it's like, what, there's no real film actresses at the time, and they were kind of right. Like I mean, we had our day and carols and things like that, but slim pickings.
Slim pickings. The last one I have on my list was Regina King.
Period. Yeah.
Where's Regina?
Talk about the length of her career, right?
Yeah. So those were like big names. And I was like, where are these people? Again, they gave us plenty of big names. They gave us plenty.
They
But
did.
it felt like the women's side was glaring to me of like we're these feel like gaps that maybe we could have fit in a few more people, but I know we only had so much time. And I'm just maybe I'm more like in love and enthusiastic about my sisters doing their
Of
thing.
course.
So I just wanted all of them to get their shine.
Absolutely. Megan Good really talked about women director along with Journey with their experience with Ease by You. And
Yes.
I'm like, that is such a pivotal. That film was major for me when growing up.
Tell Cicely to get out of the damn tub.
For the ladies, let's talk about beauty standards and hair and makeup. I was touched by Tiffany Haddish's story, talking about her experience on girls' trip, saying that was the first time she felt safe.
Yeah, she got emotional about it.
I thought it was a touching story. And then you have someone like Nia Long, who's like, I'm tired of y'all talking about me. She's like, I know what my hair, I know what my hair looks good. My makeup looks good. Let me touch up myself. Is that diva behavior, Ashley?
No, I don't think so. Especially
I don't
again
think
when
so
you're
either.
in a industry that does not necessarily always know what they're doing with you and how to handle you. This is again talking about Tyler Perry. One of my issues with the budget. I'm gonna need you to treat our black celebrities like you got some sense with these wigs. That's why when Kelly Rowland came out, she said, "I will take care of it. Not a hair out of place. Makeup was magnificent. Wardrobe was a 10."
When the women are in charge, like I feel like her and Megan Good had the same situation, right? Like they're also producers on this and they look like how they want to look.
Exactly. But I mean, Tyler's a edge case on black projects. Usually black projects are the ones that you know that you're going to have black crew as well that will help you. Whereas, you know, people don't know how to deal with your hair. People don't know how to put on your makeup. People don't know how to light you correctly. I mean, all these things. And then they gaslight you if you know, say anything about probably their work or what they've done. And, you know, so that's really unfortunate. I hope that that's getting better. I would hope that there's more diversity behind the scenes, but I'm not on these sets to really be able to speak to it.
It would have been nice if, speaking of having directors talk about, making movies in Hollywood, if they had Robert Townsend
Mm,
in on the men's side, especially because he's known for making the Hollywood Shuffle, just stepping out of it. But they did bring the black exploitation of the 70s. They put it in a positive light in this documentary. Ashley, did you agree with it?
I honestly didn't really give it much thought. Again, I look at it as more in a historical context than this is a criticism or this is a yes, we loved every depiction of everything that's ever been seen. I think it's more so an acknowledgement of this had its time and place and this built onto this.
Right. Did you miss Chris Rock on the men's side?
No, I didn't even think about it.
Me
No
either. It just came to
shade.
me now. I
No
know,
shade.
same. All right. I think it was really interesting, as I mentioned on the men's side. Essentially, they pretty much talked about it was uh Eddie Murphy, then there was Will Smith, and then there was Rock, and then there was Kevin Hart when it came to like box office and being leading men. I am so glad they took the time that they did to talk about Black Panther and Chadwick Boseman. I thought it was beautiful that Denzel was like, I cried a little bit. And he's like, this is the movie that Black people have been waiting 100 years for. I felt that.
I still to this day wish Wakanda was real. And
Seriously.
y'all can go
Seriously.
ahead and take me now.
You know what's so funny? Again, that came up on the Kev on stage and Tony, he was like, I don't know now one black person that's like, oh no, I never saw Black Panther.
Exactly. Exactly.
I think it was interesting that we saw the little bit that we did see of Michael B. Jordan. He got really touched when talking about Chadwick. I have noticed him seemingly sober since then. Have you noticed that?
I can't say I've noticed him being sober necessarily or like somber, maybe more so,
Mm,
but
yeah,
I definitely think they had a significant relationship. I feel like he has also a significant relationship with like Ryan Coogler and some other people,
right.
thankfully, that seem like they help him, not just personally, but like push him artistically,
Yeah.
which I think is great. But yeah, that's Chadwick obviously was a very special person, and there's no replacing that in Hollywood or on a personal note, right? So I agree. I think it was beautiful that they really took the time to talk about him and his work.
Marlon was featured, which I love. And I think it was interesting. We talked about ownership. He said that essentially they're like, oh, you're a writer, producer, leading actor. Why do you do that? He's like, it's out of necessity. I wholeheartedly agree. But did you know that he was supposed to be Robin in a Batman movie?
No, that was interesting. But also, did the Wayans brothers take a vote to decide who was going to be the
Keenan
representative of the
must
family?
not want to show his face
And
because,
he didn't appear at the recent awards that the family got and all that, but
yes,
Damon is still
yes,
out here, and Damon
he
is like a
is.
patriarch of the family in my
He
mind,
sure is.
an older
Yes.
brother.
Yep.
So, it could have been Marlon, it could have been Damon, it could have been Damon Wayans Jr., who's in a lot of things with them now. But just interesting that it was Marlon. Like, I love Marlon personally.
Same. All right. Well, do you have any final thoughts on number one on the call sheet?
Loved it. Like I said, I'm probably going to rewatch it at some point just to get all those gems again because it was late at night. I'm sure I'll forget some stuff, but just for like beyond me loving these celebrities, these actors, like it's just great history. Like great history, great
Yes,
Hollywood history,
this
great black
is
history.
a must watch for
Yeah,
sure.
like I just like having the knowledge and better understanding like how things have progressed over time.
I really love what Daniel Kalua had to say. He was like, I'm major, I'm not minor. And
Ooh,
I love that because I'm
yes.
like, that is the mindset, right? Like, you cannot, I think at the end of the day, for both the men and women, it's hard. It is hard. And you have to have a level of resiliency and perseverance to get to where they have been. Because I don't think anybody had a magical moment outside of Eddie's one audition.
Well, the only person I was thinking about in that documentary who could probably say something similar is Will Smith, right? Because Quincy
Yes.
Jones
Yes.
handpicked Will
Correct.
Smith,
And
like, and then
mentored
Will
him.
blew up.
Yeah. But again, he still had the discipline, right?
Yes,
To
not saying
get to,
that, but I'm saying in
yeah.
terms of the ease of entrance.
Yes. And I agree. And what I'm alluding to also is he didn't disappoint.
There was one other thing I forgot I wanted to mention when we were
Mm-hmm.
talking about beauty standards. I wondered if Halle Berry was going to talk about her nose job. Because
Nobody's talking about their nose job.
if we're being for real, I wanted Halle, if you're going to talk about how you wanted to downplay your looks, you wanted to play the crackhead and all this stuff, I wanted you to talk about why you felt or what the thought was behind adhering to these European beauty standards. I would have loved that, honestly.
There are more black, I'll just speak to actresses who have gotten their nose done than not. And there is a black plastic surgeon that they all go to. But I say that to say nobody talks about it. Nobody. Like, we always associate that, nose jobs with white people, but no, black people be getting their nose did all the time.
Absolutely. I would have loved that. I feel like Hallie was very real about a lot of things. And that was just the one thing I was like, I would have loved to hear you broach that. But
Do you think Zoe
it's all good.
Saldana should have showed up?
I thought about Zoe strongly at one point, especially again because we had The Rock.
Yeah.
And Zoe, again, you talk about somebody who's had a successful, especially box office career. But
Yes.
I just don't know if Zoe is in the circle, right? The
Correct.
circle that created this project. I don't know if she
Correct.
rolls in these circles.
And I
So,
don't think she does.
yeah.
To be fair, she's usually somewhere remote working on $1 billion film.
Yep.
So she might not socialize that much.
Yep.
All right, Ashley. Well, if there's nothing else, time for Hidden Gems.
All right, guys. I already know what you're going to say. Yes, another whodunit. Okay. My gem for this week is The Residence on Netflix. This is a Shonda Rhimes creation coming to the screen, and it stars Uzo Aduba as Cordelia Cup, Detective Cordelia Cup, the best detective in the world. Yes, Knives Out vibes in
I
terms
love it.
of
And then Detective, is
eccentric.
it Russo from all the Christie books? Detective Russo.
Yes, I know who you're talking about. So having a black woman as the best detective in the world, a whodunit set in the White House, and trying to figure out who amongst dinner party guests and staff and all these people may have had a part in a crime. We get an appearance from Kylie Minogue in this series.
No more.
Giancarlo.
No, no.
This is just the cast.
Oh, okay. So these aren't spoilers.
These are not spoilers. No, this is
Okay.
just the cast. Giancarlo Esposito is in this cast, which I feel like he's aging so
I
beautifully.
love him so much.
It's
He could have had
crazy.
the conversation. Has he been number one though?
I don't know if he's been number one.
He's a deep character actor for sure. Do you
He
know he's
is.
Italian and he started taking Latin roles because of the availability?
I did not know that. Fascinating. We also had Randall Park in this series. It was just, I enjoyed the cast. I always enjoy a whodunit murder mystery. So this is right up my alley. And it held me throughout the entirety. So I recommend it. 8 episodes, first season, available on Netflix. Check it out. What about you, Delora?
I have one this week. It is now available on Disney Plus. It is Mufasa. So I had to know what Aaron Pierre sounded like as a lion, apparently. And shout out to Blue Ivy Carter. She did a phenomenal job. Dare I say, better than her mom.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, we know the acting is in Beyonce's strong suit.
Correct.
God
But we
gave
love
her
her
so much.
so much, so much. Um, this movie was fine. Honestly, I enjoyed Lion King 2 music more than I did this one. And my dude Lin Manuel was in charge of this one. So I don't know what it was. Again, Kovu and Kiara were my faves growing up. But yeah, this was a fun movie, fun for the family. A lot of foreshadowing. So I felt like some of the story telling was a little lazy because I'm like, y'all are doing too many parallels. But visually, I thought it was fun. Shout out to director Barry Jenkins. It is worth a watch.
Very nice. Thank you. I am looking forward to checking it out when I get a chance to check it out in the future because Disney Plus may end up getting bundled with some other stuff at some point. Refuse to pay for the flat fee just for it. But awesome. Thank you so much, Laura, again, for this recap of number one on the call sheet.
Thank you.
Guys, you have to check out this two-part documentary. It really is worth a watch and a discussion. So we appreciate you guys as always, each and every one of you for sticking with us. Please share this episode with everybody you know. Leave us comments. Hit us up on Instagram at reCappin Podcast. We would love to hear from you. We will be back with more in the pop culture streets on our next episode. But in the meantime, as always, be blessed.
Bye.